Ever heard of a country where cows are sacred? Or where people are dying from selfies? Yes, you heard me right. This is the dark side of India. Before its movement for independence in the 1900s, India was always under a foreign rule. It was taken over by the British via the British East India Company in the 1600s, so they could take over the spice trade. By 1858, India was directly under British rule, and the period is called the British Raj. This change of control by the British was due to the diminishing trust in the East India Company. Nevertheless, Britain's effort to change the governing structure was pointless. This is because Indians are increasingly feeling powerless, and they're adamant to get their independence from the British. Numerous attempts at gaining more control were then taken by Indians, with the Sepoy Mutiny being the start. You might have heard of Gandhi as one of the most prominent figures in India. He was one of India's independent movement heroes and struggled for decades leading the resistance. His protege, Jawaharlal Nehru, became India's first prime minister, and with him, the Indian Constitution was born, and they finally gained independence, making them the most populous democracy in the world. If previously India was well known for their spices, it's ironic that nowadays they're also famous for something entirely different: scammers. Imagine you're getting a phone call telling you to check your computer. It's almost always someone from India, because the majority of tech support is outsourced to the country. Scammers are now taking advantage of the situation and creating a web of fraud. Just in 2022 alone, Americans lost over $10 billion to scammers in India. The problems became so drastic that the FBI was forced to assign someone as a representative in the U.S. Embassy in New Delhi to deal with it. This became a worldwide problem, and people are starting to take notice. A brilliant hacker, Jim Browning, who describes himself as a scam crusader, often helps track down scammers and warn people before they hack into their accounts. Jim puts his crusade online and has gone viral several times. He successfully hacked into the scammers' computers and manipulated their screens and CCTV, scaring the fraudsters and putting a stop to their plan. Although scammers are abundant in the country, India is one of the top economies in the world, the 8th biggest economy to be exact. According to the World Bank, their GDP is $2.66 trillion in 2022. Amazingly, this puts them just below their former colonizer, the United Kingdom, who's in 5th place. It's only a matter of time before India will take a higher place, because their growth outpaced even China in 2023. There are reports that India has improved their poverty rate in 15 years from 55% to 16.4%. This means over 415 million people have exited poverty during those years. You might think this means everyone will benefit from India's flourishing economy. Unfortunately, that is not the case. That's because there's also extraordinary inequality in the country, where the rich get most of the money. The top 1% earners in India owned 40.5% of total wealth in 2021, and their billionaires have gotten richer in 2022. This left 99% of India sharing 59% of the wealth. Despite their growing wealth, data from the UNDP shows that India is still home to most poor people in the world. These people are deprived of nutrition, cooking, fuel, housing, and sanitation, unable to make a decent living in their shanty houses. On the contrary, India's prominent billionaire, Mukesh Ambani, owns the second most expensive house in the world called Antilia, just behind Buckingham Palace. With his net worth of $104 billion, Mukesh was able to build his $1 billion house without batting an eye. The structure has 27 floors, private ice cream outlet, a private movie theater, a temple, terrace gardens, a health spa, a ballroom, a snow room, and luxurious guest rooms. This just goes to show the divide between the haves and the have-nots in India, which could also stem from their caste system. It came about from the Hindu law that divides people into 4 main categories: Brahmins, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, and Shudras. Brahmins are teachers and intellectuals. Kshatriyas are warriors or rulers, Vaishyas are traders, and Shudras are people who do menial jobs. Aside from the main four, there's also a fifth group called untouchables, or Dalits, who were forced into slavery and undignified labor. This system gives privileges to upper castes and represses the lower castes. They often live in segregation and not allowed to marry anyone outside of their caste. This concept remains strong in the country, even after decades of their independence. Separation and discrimination are still felt in rural areas and small villages. They are punished just for doing everyday activities, such as eating in front of an upper caste, sitting cross-legged, or swimming. They live in constant fear just because of their origin or how they were born. Hopefully, this will change with the new generation and Dalits will get the same opportunity they deserve. Have you ever seen a place where cows are dominating the streets, causing traffic, and are left unbothered? People in India would rather wait patiently for the cows to pass than force them to the side. This is because cows are sacred animals for the Hindu community. Even McDonald's in India won't have any beef menu, and instead have vegetarian, chicken, or fish options. This controversial animal has been polarizing the country, with one group banning the meat and another pushing for their availability. Beef is cheaper than chicken and fish, and it can be a staple protein for Muslims and Dalit communities. Due to this conflict of interest, one man was even killed by a mob for being accused of storing and consuming beef at home. So if you ever visit India, be aware of the issue and refrain from eating beef if possible. Or you can go to the states where it's legal to consume beef, such as Kerala and West Bengal, because if not, you might face 10 years of jail time for cow slaughtering or consumption. One of India's main tourist spots that are well known throughout the world is the Ganges River. But if you think you're going to be looking at fresh, flowing blue river, think again. The Ganges is not just a regular river in India. It's called the Mother Goddess Ganga and is a focal point of religious offerings. It's also because it's a vital source of water for 40% of the Indian population. On the other hand, the river has about 3 million liters of sewage being emptied into her. Not to mention the people who come to the Ganges and bathe to clean themselves of their sins. There are also flowers and food offerings that clog the waterways every day. Lastly, it's also deemed as one of the holiest places for people's eternal rest. Cremated ashes and bodies wrapped in white cloth are sent on their way into the Ganges River. If you think you've heard of bizarre death causes, wait until you hear one of the most perplexing ways to die in India. The country that has the most selfie-related deaths in the world. That's right, the humble self-portrait has killed more people in India than anywhere else on Earth. India does have some of the most beautiful sights you could ever see, but the fact that people are dying while taking pictures is confusing. According to research, about 250 people have died in search of their perfect selfie since 2011, and more than half of those people are in India. Most of the kilfies are caused by drowning, being hit by a train or car, or falling from high structures. The researchers said that this could be due to India's strong visual culture that's ingrained thoroughly in their young people. This is evident in their advertising, media culture, public messages, gods, and religious figures that grace much of India. Thankfully, the authorities have acknowledged the issue and have taken steps to further prevent damage. Some dangerous spots are now classified as no selfie zones, and there's also an app that the government developed to alert people of dangerous selfie locations called Selfie. India is a country with unique culture and beautiful sights that are worth a visit. Nevertheless, let's hope that the world's second most populated country can solve its issues and continue to thrive.